Hello there, world. Welcome to another installment of Fractal Radio, the official blog of the Fractal Journal. My name's Alex Weir, and I don't have anything in particular to talk about today, but maybe as I go along, I'll find refutable material. Attempt number 1. My hand hurts right here. There's a sore. Obviously, you can't tell. I mean, there's nothing there except maybe a little bit of redness. But if you're riding a bicycle, that's what I did all day today. That's what I did with my Saturday. It was excellent. If you ride a bicycle for a really long time, you're going to want a glove, especially if you're a person that is a little neurotic like me and really grips the shit out of things. So, since we're on the subject of spending our days and things, the thought occurred to me as I was doing my whole exercise routine today. There's a lot of romance around, the artist or the writer as being disaffected and ineffectual somewhat, right? A famous example of someone that I admire is Christopher Hitchens. And he wasn't disaffected or dysfunctional in that sort of sense, but he did drink and smoke a lot. So substance abuse, at least, or some such thing, must be part and parcel of your persona, and that contributes to your creativity. Well, honestly, just because of precedent, I can see how this got developed. But personally, I feel that, and there is a trend towards this now anyway, I think that several stand-up comedians have kind of already criticized the new generation of people in music, etc., that they're not crazy enough in terms of like drug use, blah, blah, blah. But I think that developing your body, strength training, not to get too hippity-dippity, but meditation or some sort of ascetic practice, that can yield many more benefits than just drug use, etc., for creativity. Now, I'm not knocking a little bit of ganja here and there. It can be fun. But really, the fuel in your system, it doesn't matter. What matters is your capacity to steer, and your steering capacity will be greatly affected by the health and vitality of your body. Another thing of, like, say, artists that I like in terms of music tend to be kind of wavy. So Conor Oberst, Nick Drake. I guess Nick was kind of tall, but whatever, it's still very thin. And Elliott Smith, all kind of, I don't want to say scrawny, but not very physically developed people. And I think that the fact that they were that way, that puts you into a certain space, psychologically and mentally, and that there is a lot of depth of real emotion that they brought to the table because they were there. But I think a part of it, and tragically for Nick and for Elliott, they killed themselves. In the case of Elliott, it wasn't certain what happened, but it seemed to have been a suicide. And I feel that the more I develop myself, because I've always been athletic, but there have been times where I, slump for various reasons. The more fit I am, like the more, especially in my wrists, I don't know why I happened to notice that today, I feel like strength and feedback and stuff. The more I feel that despite all of the all of the feelings that I feel, despite all of the emotional shit that goes on, and I don't mean like overwhelming or weepy, but I mean, there's a certain sentimentality, a depth of feeling that you don't associate with athletic people, but I'm able to channel that and kind of divide it in a richer way than I would if I was just riding this wave of emotion and chain smoking and all that shit. This is not meant to be some kind of Boy Scout PSA, but it's food for thought because I've certainly fallen into the trap of thinking that it's helpful to get into that self-destructive almost zone. And I mean, like, I haven't smoked in a long time, but I wouldn't mind from time to time to have a cigarette or to get a little bit tipsy or whatever. I think it's fine, even if you get tipsy weekly. I would try to avoid smoking weekly, but what I'm saying is physical exercise as a means of spiritual development of God, it sounds so fucking hippie. As a means of like developing higher level thinking and empathy skills is underrated. And I think because a lot of athletic culture revolves around sports and hoorah, almost military type stuff. And so it goes by the wayside. Now, I've felt that it was important to put that out there. I'm sure a lot of people have had this thought, but I want to reinforce it. Now, I don't know. What I might try to do now is grab my guitar, like the hippie that I am, and play a bit of a song. This is all before my friend gets here. Yes, honestly, despite me not posting stuff online, I haven't been socializing at all. Like, I've been trying to do all I can to push stuff forward, practicing music, and going to the gym. So I haven't really seen anybody, but the minutiae of my life is beside the point. I'll be right back in an attempt to entertain you. So back in around 2000, maybe it was already 2010 by that point, but way back in the early days of my YouTubing and such, I've always, for a long time, anyway, not always, but I had an interest in Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, and I asked this German girl on YouTube if she could read a Goethe poem for me, because I was trying to, set some stuff to music, clumsily, and she did. And the project that was for that time was called Birch Tree Band, which is no longer a project of mine, but I think I have the pronunciation of that poem down, and I'm going to set it to a sort of goofy sounding thing that I do with chords, and it's actually probably going to be just two chords, G and D. Dude, right now I remind myself so much of the hippie teacher from Beavis and Butthead. Yeah, it's pretty gay, but here it goes. Alle die Weisesten, alle die Zeiten, lächeln, winken und stimmen mit ein. Töricht auf Besserung, die Toten zu harren, Kinder der Klugheit, o habet die Narren, ebenso mit Narren auch, wie sich's gehört. That's the whole first part of that poem. So alle die Besetzten, alle die Zeiten, lächeln und winken und stimmen mit ein. So all of the wise and all of the ages laugh and agree as one, or nod and agree as one. Alle die Wesisten, alle der Zeiten, lächeln und winken und stimmen mit ein, Todesste auf Besserung die Toten zu harren. That you shouldn't wait, I think, for fools to get wiser, is the general gist. And back when I was younger and cynical and liked to stick it to people and thought I was the reincarnation of Voltaire, I thought that was great as a sentiment, and so I wanted to set it to music. The next part of the poem goes Leuchtet und Grabe, something about Merlin? Merlin? I don't know. I guess Goethe was getting really retro. But on the subject of Goethe, who is Johann Wolfgang von Goethe? For those not in the know, I really think that most people know who he was. He was a German poet, like basically the equivalent of Shakespeare, except he came on way later, like the 1700s. And he was known for poetry, musings on life and death, philosophy, and he wrote several plays as well as books called Wilhelm Meister's Wanderjahre. And I'm not sure if it was Werther or Wilhelm who became infamous because a lot of emos back in the day killed themselves when they read it. But the reason that I started to fall in love with Goethe was because of his, typical friggin' moody little bitch teenager. And I was reading a lot of Nietzsche, and Nietzsche had some Goethe poems, and I think one of them, I don't even know if that was in the book or because I was doing German shit, I saw Blix Bargeld perform. What the fuck was he performing? Über allen Gipfeln ist Stroh, in allen Wipfeln spürst du. Yeah, that one. The Wanderer's Nightly, The Wanderer's Night Song. And I just liked the scenery because I like the camp. I like the forest. And so apparently he was in the woods. He was talking about over all the hilltops and treetops and all that shit. A stillness descends, all the birds are silent. Watch the fuck out. You're going to be silent soon too. And it was just a really nice cadence to say that you should try to live life to the fullest. A really hackneyed message, I guess, by now. Or maybe it was always hackneyed because people have always noticed this. But shit, hackneyed shit needs to be delivered too, right? Speaking of hackneyed shit, so I think that we need to bring back this phenomenon of songs that aren't necessarily about women or relationships or Satan or Jesus or Buddha or enlightenment or any of that shit. I think we just need to bring back songs about stuff, like sailing. So towards the end of that, because I'm just fascinated by the fact that people were ballsy enough or retarded enough to cross these giant bodies of water in these nasty ass shit stained ships. So I was like, if I was a captain, I would probably feel pretty fucking cool under the stars, but at the same time, I'd be freaked out about rations and shit. And I wrote this little gay song. I see colors in the night, shining brightly in the sky. Fallen stars light my path, I swear that I will never die. The sea is breaking beneath my bow, black as pitch, and I somehow must navigate this foaming messes. Drink and ration grow less and less and less and less and less. Yeah. I fucked it up, but that's an invention, number 8, by Johann Sebastian Bach. And isn't Bach basically the quintessential musician? I mean, the shit that he put out there, it's fucking insane. Like the sheer volume and amount of the intricacy of the work. And that one story when he was at the court of King Frederick II, and he was asked to just come up with this several part fugue off of something that the king, who was an amateur musician himself, very involved in that, but had come up, and he came up with like a crazy part fugue, just like right there, and it was intense. So how does that happen? I guess just a lifetime of practice and some original natural inclination. And the reason I'm talking about Bach is there was a documentary that I think Glenn Gould had made about Bach that kind of stuck in my mind, or maybe it was a documentary by some British guy, or at least narrated by some British guy. But, Bach was sort of retro in that, I think it was kind of the cusp of the Age of Enlightenment, when people were moving away from these Flemish, intricate forms, these tame things, to move into the more romantic-y, kind of Chopin-esque stuff, and there was a lot more showing off, all Liszt style going on, like his sons. But Bach was more restrained and like the old forms and the focus on God and etc. And I'm not, I wouldn't call myself religious or anything, but I think that there is something in terms of stasis that comes from that sort of, like in terms of grounding, that comes from that sort of focus, and not even necessarily just spiritually wise, but in terms of like Bach's music, it kind of unfolds in this really structured but random way that just surprises you but maintains a certain steadiness. And that's such a word salad pile of shit that you could say it about any piece of music, but there's something about that idea circle that I think fits especially well around Bach's music. And that's why I think everybody should study Bach, whether or not you're a musician, because in my life, it's helped me tremendously. And hopefully, as I gain more understanding of the music, I can put this forward in a more coherent fashion. But yeah, this is a 17-minute podcast vlog so far, and I'm really fucking hoping that it's worth your time. Primarily, my goal with these is for people to keep them in the background. I'm too lazy to look up relevant pictures and do like a newscast thing all of the time, so sometimes it'll just be like this. But the reason I show my face is so that if people need something to look at and they got my room, they've got this, because it gives more of an interface, or you can just listen, I'm not certain what's best, but I'm doing. I'm freaking doing. Songs about chicks are kind of gay, and I just literally said we should do more songs focused on themes like sailing or whatever, but I don't even think it's that songs are so much about chicks a lot in the, I guess, more recent alternative rock, emo scene / folk scene / grunge and all that. I think it's about like the experience of life unfolding, and oftentimes life unfolds most richly through the lens of love or infatuation. So towards that end, I wrote this faggy little song. I remember the taste of cherries that you bought. I ran to the corner for a bit of gin, so that a bit of gin, so that our buzz could begin. Our buzz could begin. The window is dirty, and I don't care. as the sunlight dabbles in your hair. Sit and we think, sit and we drink, we sit and we pause in surprise at the spaces between the refrigerator and every little later, every little while, so long as we can smile. And yeah, I said, I remember the sweet taste of cherries that you bought, and I ran out to the corner mart for a bit of gin. So our bus could begin, so our bus could begin, so our bus could begin. And could I pause anymore to think up lyrics for the song? Oh,